On this episode of Sports Opinions Podcast, my man Brandon Scoopy Robinson comes back on the show as he shares a little bit of his Kobe memories and what he felt during the time of the tragedy. Then we get into some NBA trade rumors a day before the trade deadline. And then we also talk about some contenders and pretenders from the East and the West in the NBA for just legitimate playoff spots and also for championship chances. So without any further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. With me is a guy, it's a familiar voice, and funny enough, I think came on right around the same exact time last year, because last year we were talking about the Super Bowl. This year it's right after the Super Bowl, and it happens to be right before the trade deadline. It's friend of the show, my friend, your friend, Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. What's up, Scoop?
Trying to get some type of rest. How are you?
Good. You ain't getting it yet. You got to do this little show with me first.
Deal, man. We've had that in the works since what, like September, October?
Oh, yeah. We're always – I went to you and I told you when I want to have you on, and you were like, trade deadline. I see where you're at right now.
Yes, sir.
You called me out.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Here we are.
Yeah. And everyone, if you want to hear Scoop all the time, definitely go check out Scoopy Radio podcast, anywhere you can find it. He's always fun on there. He's everywhere, and you can listen to any of his appearances wherever he is or all of his guests that he has on. So that's always fun. And on Twitter, he's super entertaining, giving you inspirational quotes and putting down haters, which is always entertaining to watch him troll some people. So definitely go follow Scoop at Scoopy over there. So how's it been going? Long time no talk, really.
Man, it's been good. I have been just working extremely hard. I think last time we have spoken, which would be on your pod this time last year, you said, right?
About, I think, yeah.
I've been to LA 3 times, Chicago about 3 times, Charlotte. I've been to Oklahoma City with Russell the day he was traded, and it's been from last time we talked on your pod to now, it has just been a very good year exponentially, just with my building, writing, breaking stuff, anything from Kyrie and his thoracic bursitis to, Paul George's torn rotator cuff. It's pretty much, with the exception of Kawhi and KD going to Los Angeles Lakers, everything pretty much else has checked out. So I'm doing all right, just staying busy.
Speaking of you breaking stuff, Mr. I'm retired, I'm done after, it's been different because last year around this time during the trade deadline, you were super active, super busy, putting out everything, all the little inklings from your trusted sources. You were putting it out there.
Yes.
This year, it's not so much. You have your little tidbits that you're throwing out there, but you're much more reserved. You haven't retired from breaking news, but you definitely haven't retired. I think you're working harder this year than you've worked. You're out more. You're everywhere. But in an essence, you retired from the game of breaking it minute by minute, per se, it seems like.
Man, that's tiring as hell. And, listen, if that's what you want, kiss my ass. I'm not doing it.
Now, what I want from you is to get Jamal Crawford onto the Brooklyn Nets or a team. That man needs to be playing basketball.
I talked to Jamal last week, and we were on the phone talking, and Jamal, he still wants to play. It is my belief that after the trading deadline and after buyouts, Jamal will likely be on a team. Philadelphia rings a bell. Brooklyn would work. I can tell you that he and Kyrie are close. He and Kyrie have a relationship that spans years and a mutual respect. Brooklyn will be cool. I wouldn't have thought that around Thanksgiving time. I can tell you, that wink, wink, league sources tell me back then that, it would come down to the Raptors or the Milwaukee Bucks. But, at this point, looking at different options, there are more teams out there that could use him. Philly could use him. The Lakers, in my opinion, could use him. I think Milwaukee could use him. I think that Brooklyn could use him. But I think, even Houston could use him. But I err on the side of caution because I don't think he should just go to a team just because they want him. You kind of saw that last year with Phoenix, where, Phoenix was a young team, but Phoenix was in a situation where they weren't a playoff team, and that was a team that was looking at them. People got mad at Carmelo Anthony last season for not joining, a Detroit Pistons team who could have used him, or like a team like that. And he found greener pastures in Portland. So I think it's one of those things where don't just pick a team just because they want you. Pick it because that's where you want to go.
I don't like that answer. Pick Brooklyn because we want you.
Okay, we'll go with that.
But before we get into all the trade deadline talk, because we're going to get into there, I haven't had a chance to talk to you really on the podcast. We've texted a few times, but the Kobe Bryant situation, terrible tragedy of losing Kobe Bryant. We did my Quest to Dose show with my brother and the guest on the Personal Foul podcast, Colton Guest, who is a Lakers fan, a full tribute. At that moment, you were still in a bad way. You did some stuff on Instagram. You directed me there. I shared the Instagram story that you put on there about basically getting to Lower Merion just to go watch him play because you were over at Eastern.
Yes.
Do you have any other memories or stories? Because obviously you grew up around basketball. You knew and were in the same areas as Kobe a lot of the times. And you posted a picture with his father not too long ago. Any memories and stories you want to share? Yeah, go ahead. Share some stuff with us.
I called his father today, actually. I waited a couple of days, really a week after the death, a tragic death. Kobe Bryant, 41 years old. Helicopter accident. He and his daughter, as well as several other people, were on the helicopter. And, I knew of Kobe, obviously. So, funny story. Obviously, my childhood. I was supposed to actually go to a Lakers-Nets game working in the 90s. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time because my sister was just born. And my mom would take me to Nets games when I had to work, and then my stepfather would come from work and then would relieve my mother, and then my stepfather would we would go home after. So my mom, on that particular day, I had to go to the school office to call my mom for something, and I kept getting on her nerves. So she said, Brandon, if you call this house one more time, I'm not taking you to the Nets-Lakers game tonight. So I pressed *67 and called back. Because, if you press *67, it blocks the number. So she goes, so I come home from school. She goes, come on, you ready? She goes, you're not going. I said, why? She said, because you called again. I said, no, I didn't. She said, Brandon, you called and you blocked the number. I said, that wasn't me. Well, I don't care. You're still not going. So
that sounds like something you would do, Scoop.
Who, me?
Thinking you're smarter than every. No one outsmarts mama. You should know that's a golden rule. No one outsmarts mama.
Yeah, so needless to say, it was me. She still can't prove it, even though I said it on your show.
Mama, don't listen.
And so
earmuffs.
I didn't go, and I watched it on TV. So this is what I'll tell you. I'll tell you that I didn't get a chance to see Kobe Bryant play live again until the 2016 All-Star game. Just life,
a long time.
School, high school, just life. I did Net Slamming Planet for 2 years.
Yep.
In high school. So what I'll tell you is I got to know Kobe's father in 2014. I was part of a basketball exposure program that Kobe was a part of, and a guy that was Paul George's trainer, myself, a bunch of people, and it was in Dallas, Texas. So I actually flew out there the day after the 2014 NBA draft. And if you remember, around that time, that was when Jason Kidd and Billy King were having issues with power of who's the GM and who's the coach.
Yep.
Long story short, I get out there, and Kobe's father's hotel was right across the hall from mine during that week in Dallas. And so I was in his room, he was in my room, and we were literally just talking about basketball for hours. Anything from what Kobe was like as a kid, Kobe and I both have that passion thing in common as far as us picking our fields and doing what we want to do. So we had that in common. And kind of just talking to Jelly about what Kobe was like as a kid and comparing those to myself. And, they shared Del Harris in common. Del Harris was an assistant coach with the Houston Rockets, and then Del Harris was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers during Kobe's first couple years
Yep.
With the Lakers. So there's a connection there. And we just stayed in touch via text message, via phone, and then I ended up heading over to CBS in 2015 and had a podcast as well as a contributor, CBS Local Sports, CBS Sports Radio, and CBS This Morning. And what happened was Kobe's father called me, Jelly Bean Bryant, former NBA player himself, and asked me to be on his show around the time that Kobe announced that he was going to retire. And, we talked about a lot. He told me that, Kobe, even though Jelly was a Sixer and was from Southwest Philly, played at John Bartram High School, he still, he was still a fan of the Lakers because that's the team that his son played for. And, just the relationship has just always been there. I know other people within the Bryant family. I knew Kobe. Had his phone number, called him the day that the helicopter, went down and got no answer. I'll tell you that the Bryant, I reconnected with Kobe or connected with Kobe in 2016 at the NBA All-Star Game in Toronto and asked him about you saw the video, it was on my Instagram, asked him about, riding out in the sunset. Would he have liked to have done that just how Peyton Manning did it? He said it would have been great, but, he won 5 NBA championships and, many people don't win one. So not to ramble, my fondest memories of Kobe were those things that happened with me professionally on the court, watching him his last All-Star game in 2016 in Toronto. I was there. I was working. I saw that. And, I think the other parts of it were just the slam dunk contest that he won in 97, scoring the 60 points against the Utah Jazz and making a visit to Rucker Park in Harlem.
Yep.
Those are some of my fondest memories of Kobe.
Yeah, I just definitely want to get your take on it because it is a tragedy and it's something that, I think we're all doing our best, all the fans of Kobe and the people that were affected by it. We're doing our best to do exactly what Kobe would have wanted. That would be keep pushing, keep doing our thing the way we do it, and not mourn him for too long. Because, first thing Kobe would say, and I said it on the show, especially about them not playing the games, and I get why they didn't. I don't blame the Lakers at all for taking a game, but you and I both know Kobe would have been like, damn, man, pick up the ball and play. What are y'all doing? Just go play the game. He'd be the first one to say it. So in memory of Kobe, we're going to continue to trudge on. Rest in peace to all of them. But I appreciate you sharing that, Scoop. I appreciate you sharing just a few moments of Kobe, his father, and, we wish everyone the best in those families in this tough time.
And blocking the call to my mom.
And blocking the call to your mom, which did not happen, Mama Robinson. Didn't happen.
Oh.
So we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes, and, I'm just going to get some juicy stuff from you right now. Scoop, what is the hottest trade rumor that you got right now? It is the 5th of February at 8:51. Trade deadline's the 6th at 3 o'clock. Overnight is the best time for this stuff. So what are you hearing right now that is hot?
I mean, the Andre Iguodala thing is the biggest thing at the time of this recording. Justice Winslow and Andre Iguodala Justice Winslow will be part of the deal that likely ships Andre Iguodala to the Miami Heat, a contender.
Yep.
Lakers were not able to get it done, and the Clippers were unable to get it done. Justice Winslow will be part of that trade, which is not really surprising because the Heat were looking to make a move on Justice Winslow during the NBA free agency period over the summer, which was a zoo. that I had Jimmy Butler in his meeting with the Heat. He ultimately ended up signing with the Miami Heat. But there was a belief within many organizations or within the NBA circle at large that there could be a 3-team trade that would bring Jimmy Butler to Miami, and Justice Winslow was one of the names with the Dallas Mavericks that could have been a part of it. and it didn't happen. So Justice Winslow's contract was an attractive contract, but ultimately, Miami waited, and he is part of the Memphis Grizzlies deal that will send Andre Iguodala there. Another popular opinion is, Andre Drummond in Detroit, will he get, what will be the asking price for it? I think many people cannot quantify what he's worth. He's a double-double machine. Charlotte has been interested in Drummond for some time now. And, at the trading deadline last year, they were looking quietly to make that happen. Mitch Kupchak has been very high on Drummond for years.
Yep.
Glad that they could wait until the offseason. Like, some of those things are very fluid. What I'm finding with the free agency period this season is a lot of things that people were discussing, in the trade deadline, a lot of things that people were discussing during free agency during the summertime, they're carrying over into the trading deadline. You're seeing it now with D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell was a restricted free agent during last summer, and he was part of the sign and trade that shipped Kevin Durant to the Brooklyn Nets and sent D'Angelo to the Golden State Warriors. And it was a belief that in December, that would be when Golden State would be looking to use him as a bargaining chip. And they could not get it done on Monday night in their discussions. The New York Knicks quietly have been players in acquiring D'Angelo Russell, but the asking price has been a lot. Unprotected first-round pick, as well as Mitchell Robinson, Alonzo Trier, as well as Kevin Knox, is what I'm hearing the Golden State Warriors are asking for, and it seems to be a stalemate right now between those two teams. And of course, the Knicks also got rid of their team president, Steve Mills. So
yep,
those are the things that are kind of making their way. Just to summarize again, Andre Drummond, as well as Andre Iguodala, the two Dre's, and then also D'Angelo Russell.
Now, what about Marcus Morris Sr.? You mentioned the Knicks. They're desperately, it seems like, trying to move him. There's been some conflicting reports. It said they want to move him. Then it said they're trying to keep him. What are you hearing about Marcus Morris? Is there anything in place for him to get moved right now?
Yeah, I'll take it back to January when I reported while I was on vacation, no less, that the Clippers and analyzing that situation. I can tell you that the Clippers are looking for a big man. Recently, Yahoo's Chris Haynes reported that Tristan Thompson, for example, was a guy that the Clippers would that the Cleveland Cavaliers would make available at the NBA's trading deadline. And I will tell you that the Clippers are a team that has interest in Tristan Thompson. The Clippers are looking for an additional big man. You look at the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that will likely go toe-to-toe with the Clippers at some point during the season. They're looking a way to combat a very top-heavy Lakers team who does have Anthony Davis, who do have, JaVale McGee, as well as DeMarcus Cousins. And then, LeBron James is a hybrid 6'9" freight train. So, they're looking for some way to combat that. And Tristan Thompson was a name that I mentioned. And yep. I think on the Lakers side, I have heard, again, free agency carries over into, trading deadline, just things that were supposed to happen that did not happen. The Boston Celtics, as well as the Los Angeles Lakers, were very high on not just Morris, but also Ed Davis. And
Ed Davis would be a great pickup for them.
What you say?
Ed Davis would be a great pickup for that team.
But this was, let me just clarify. That was something that was discussed during free agency, not
okay.
Now. So both teams were very high on Ed Davis as well as Drummond. Excuse me, I keep saying Drummond. Morris.
Yep.
So looking at free agency now, one thing that I have heard is being discussed is the whole Kyle Kuzma thing. But I've heard different versions of that story because the Lakers are very big on chemistry right now. You talk to everybody in that locker room. I've talked to Kyle Kuzma about it. I've talked to Contavious Caldwell-Pope about it. I've spoken with Danny Green as well as Jared Dudley about it. Chemistry is a big thing. I talked to Kuzma just about trade, rumors and things of that sort. And
Hmm.
Kuzma's thing is, I don't think about it much. I just play the game of basketball. And he kind of reiterated that after the Spurs game the other night, where he said, Kobe told him, if you're not being talked about, you're not relevant. And Kuzma said, I'm the hottest talk of the town right now. And so I've heard anything from Sacramento. Bojan Bogdanovic is a guy that was discussed. I've also heard that the Detroit Pistons did reach out to the Lakers concerning Derrick Rose being shipped to the Lakers in exchange for Kuzma, Danny Green, and Alex Caruso. And I'm told that the Lakers did turn that down. So, you hear a lot of conflicting reports. The Kuzma thing is probably the most interesting conversational piece. I look at Morris. Morris was a guy that anybody from the Spurs to the Clippers to the Celtics had interest in him, and there were some things that went on behind the scenes with his representation that it made it not a plausible situation. So he says he likes it in New York playing for the Knicks. I have to take him at his word. But I was hearing some rumblings about that in January, and then the conversation kind of shifted. I don't know if it's Kobe Bryant related. I don't, as far as his death and just the chemistry of the Lakers locker room going to another level, or maybe there isn't anybody really serious. If I'm not mistaken, Kuzma is in the last year of a 3-year rookie deal, which would pay him out, I believe, $3 to $5 million. I don't quote me on that, but they want to get something for him in case he leaves via free agency.
Definitely. Yeah, that Kuzma situation is really interesting, and I've always been pretty high on Kuz. So I understand teams wanting to get him, but the Lakers would be foolish to not get a king's ransom for him. He's a super talented kid.
Yes, for sure.
But another guy, I might throw two other names at you, and then I want to talk a little bit about the Nets and who they're moving and who they shouldn't move. But first, Kevin Love has a massive contract, $90 million. Would be really tough for any team to match that with role players. And I don't think Kevin Love is a big enough star right now to go a star for star trade. Are you hearing anything about Kevin Love? Are there feelers being put out to the Cavs? What's going on with him right now?
I've heard anything from Portland, and I was hearing Portland, I want to say in the fall time.
Mm-hmm.
With the Iguodala situation now being what it is, I'm wondering if that's still an option. But I also believe that the Cavaliers are kind of in a situation like the Golden State Warriors, where they realize what they have, and if it doesn't come into something they're interested in, then they'll wait until the summertime. And here's the reason why with Kevin Love. Kevin Love is a 6'10" power forward that can rebound and can shoot. That's like having a pretty woman as your wife or your girlfriend who can cook, clean, goes to work every day, and likes watching basketball with you. You covet that at all costs.
I like that.
So, the Kevin Love situation is a little bit more murky just because I don't think that the Cavaliers are looking to make something happen unless it really comes their way. To me, Tristan Thompson seems more plausible, but like always, things are always fluid and things can change in that moment. So Kevin Love, to me, he likes it in Cleveland. I've spent time with Kevin in Cleveland, and Kevin really took to that crowd early on when he came to Cleveland during the LeBron Kyrie days. And I think that Cleveland stands put unless there's something that comes their way and there's an offer that they can't refuse. I think the thing that gets interesting is you look at the Miami situation. If the Miami situation were to happen, they'd have to give up Deion Waiters, and I don't know that Cleveland wants to take on Deion in Cleveland again.
Yeah, that would be that wasn't a great marriage the first time, and Dion has cooled off since 2 years ago when he was a budding superstar in terms of scoring. He took over the playoffs,
Yes.
and he's kind of cooled off since then. Now, I have two other names I'm looking at. I'm going to throw them both at you, and you can tell me a little bit. two other names that I saw potentially being in trades. Danilo Gallinari at the Thunder is healthy for once and is playing like the guy that we all thought he could be. He's another unicorn where he's 6'10" and can move and score like he's 6'6". He's a very good scorer and a good player. I've seen things about him on, through the Twitter webs. And also Andrew Wiggins being included as a package guy in the deal because his contract is massive. What are you hearing about either of those guys? I don't think Wiggins goes anywhere because of his number, but who knows?
So the first person you said was
Danilo Gallinari.
Danilo Gallinari. I was hearing back in the summertime when I was with Russell
Yep.
at his comedy show and then spending, a week in Oklahoma. There was a belief that the Miami Heat would be a suitor if Chris Paul was shipped to the Miami Heat. And, since then, Chris Paul has had a heck of a season, all-star caliber season is in this year's all-star game. Danilo Gallinari is somebody that has piqued a lot of people's interest because of his shooting. Again, I talked about Kevin Love being a 6'10" power forward that can rebound and shoot. I use that analogy of a lady that you date or you're married to that can do anything. I think shooting is another thing that is highly coveted in the NBA. Danilo Gallinari does that for you. And so I think the drawback of that is that the Thunder are having such a wonderful season. Do you want to break up that chemistry? Kind of the same situation the Lakers have.
Difference is the Lakers are a championship contender and the Thunder are a playoff contender.
This is true. But I'll take that and raise you. The Thunder are not in a rush to do anything because they weren't even expected to be in this position. To me, Steven Adams is somebody that is more attractive only because he's a big man. But I think that the Thunder are in such a great situation. Everything that I've heard, as it relates to the Thunder is Dennis Schroeder, for example. The Knicks were taking a look at him and had made calls back in Monday mode. The Danilo Gallinari situation, Miami to me would be a good fit, but like I always say, things are fluid throughout the course of free agency, and I think that the Thunder are not in a pressured situation to do anything unless something comes their way. So Danilo is a shooter, and there are a lot of people that want shooters, but what are they willing to give up in this market? I think things will start to heat up around noontime come Thursday, and he may be a name that you'll see.
If I'm the Thunder right now, I'm going and trading all four of them for young guys and picks. Not a championship team right now. Get what you can. That would be me. Just because, you're not getting a championship with Chris Paul, Schroeder, Adams, and Danilo. They're a nice team. They're gonna make the playoffs fun with who they play, but they're not a championship team. You get rid of all four of them. You get some young guys that have potential. You get some high picks. I think for Danilo this year, you could probably get a first rounder for Danilo right now. And that's the way you go.
About it. He's averaging 19.2 points and 5.7 rebounds and 2.3 assists per game. And his true shooting percentage, I checked it was 61.7%. And he's helping that squad. Chris Paul, you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that team is above 500 and they're really competing. I was coming back from vacation last month from Mexico and I watched the Thunder Rockets game on the plane ride home. And those guys weren't scared. And Danilo Gallinari, is a shooter that has veteran experience. Despite injuries, despite setbacks, he's been consistent. You don't give up a shooter just because that's what the market may want. And they can go into the summer making moves. If I'm not mistaken, the Thunder have about 7 draft picks.
They are the hoarder of draft picks. They have 1,000, so they really don't need them, but they're always nice.
But to me, if something were to happen, Miami would be the buyer. Miami was expected to be a buyer at the NBA's trading deadline. And December was when Miami was going to start doing so. But, the trading deadline is really heating up. But, the Iguodala situation is the one that to me, Miami will be a big winner should the deal, finalize. But Danilo Gallinari is a guy that would definitely be a complementary piece to guys like Jimmy Butler, who commands a double team. And I think that he could extend his career if he would find his way to Miami. But I think ultimately the Oklahoma City Thunder hold the keys to the Maserati.
There it is. So we're going to talk a little about the Nets because I saw one of the worst trade rumors I've ever seen in my life that I hope doesn't happen. Spencer Dinwiddie being floated around for Aaron Gordon, I think, is hopefully never happens. Aaron Gordon, I think we're 2 years past that ship of getting him. I wouldn't have minded him 2 years ago, not now. And also, I don't think you give up Spencer Dinwiddie for anyone who isn't a 20-point-a-night all-star. But besides that, I'm also seeing names like Taurean Prince, Jarrett Allen, Karis LeVert being floated around. What are you hearing about the Brooklyn Nets? Because Sean Marks, I feel like he gets antsy around this time and just needs to make a move because he knows he can make this team better. And he likes playing that type of game where he can kind of swindle somebody and make his team better. What do you hear?
I personally don't see any major moves the Nets make because I think they're really preparing for the summer and next season when Kevin Durant returns. The Lakers, it was reported, did make calls about Spencer Dinwiddie. The Aaron Gordon situation, I think he's a contract that the Magic want to get off the books, but and they want to get something for him. But I think that the Orlando Magic are in a great prime position because they're building around Markelle Fultz and Nikola Vucevic, it seems. And, you have Aaron Gordon, who's, more of he's like a skinnier Blake Griffin at this point with Orlando. And I feel like if he went to Brooklyn, it may slow down the offense a bit, a high-octane offense. But perhaps if he were to come to Brooklyn, it would be a situation where it would keep Kyrie from running breakneck speed all the time and getting hurt. As you get older, at 26, 27 years old, you're close to 30, you want to preserve your career. You look at Dwayne Wade at times. He put a lot of wear and tear on his body. Now, Kyrie and Dwayne Wade play two different positions, but as you get older, you want to preserve your body and maybe bringing in a guy who can still get to the basket or post up in today's modern game could be a benefit. But I don't see Brooklyn making any major decisions. I will tell you that just in reading various things today, I think Spencer Dinwiddie has been the heart and soul of that team.
Hell yeah.
So, I think it's difficult to trade away a piece like that.
And he's grown. The fact that Brooklyn Nets fans and even the franchise has watched this kid they picked up from the G League, who we forget is still young. He's a veteran now, but what is he, 24, 25? He's not an old guy completely.
Right.
And he has grown with the Nets, and he's defined Brooklyn grit. He is quite literally what they wanted between him, Joe Harris, guys like that. So I don't think you let a guy like that go, especially one who has turned himself into an all-star. Whether he got the nod or not, he is an all-star this year.
Yep.
So we're going to jump to another fun topic that I think you'll be able to sink your teeth into. We're going to talk some contenders, pretenders for the NBA at this current point, right before the trade deadline, which we're going to talk about this, and I guarantee will change dramatically with all the trades that are happening or going to happen. But we'll look in the East first, because you have your teams that are kind of locked for the playoffs between your Bucks, Raptors, Celtics, Heat, Pacers, and the Sixers. But then right there on the bubble, you have the Nets, who playing better as of late, but they're well under 500. We talked about the Magic and the 8 seed. And then the ones kind of knocking at the door are the Bulls, the Wizards, and the Pistons. Let's talk about that bottom group, starting with the Nets, Magic, Bulls, Wizard, Pistons. Which two teams of those do you think are actual contenders to get in the playoffs?
The Bulls.
Bulls?
I do.
And do you like Brooklyn to stay in as well?
I like Brooklyn to stay in, but it all depends on Kyrie's health.
Yeah. And so do you think Brooklyn will do enough to stay in the 7 seed? Because nobody, Spencer Dinwiddie said it the best. Nobody wants to be in the 8 seed. No one wants to play the Bucks. You can't guard Giannis Antetokounmpo. Do you think there'll be enough to get that 7 seed and rekindle their rivalry with seemingly the Raptors?
Um, I look at the bottom from 9 down: the Wizards, the Pistons, the Hornets, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Hawks. Um, I think even when John Wall comes back, it's going to be very difficult. But it's not impossible because you look at the Orlando Magic, what happens in the second half of the season. I kind of saw that with Orlando last year, but they ended up making it to the playoffs anyway. Were they going to be a 7th, 8th, 9th seed? They kind of were up and down. I think the reason why the NBA's Eastern Conference is so interesting to watch is because, number one, the Raptors are still doing well despite Kawhi being gone. You knew the Bucks were going to be the Bucks. The Pacers with Victor Oladipo coming back are right back where they left off at with a healthy Oladipo this time. And the Heat are looking to get better in the Eastern Conference. This is the first, Charles Barkley said this to me, this is like the first time in a long time that we don't just predict that it's going to be the Cavs and the Warriors in the NBA Finals. So you don't know who is going to be who in the Western or the Eastern Conference. That's what makes this season so exciting. That being said, if the Sixers don't get their act together, they could be from the bottom looking up. You look at the Bulls, chemistry to me. I've been around that team. I'm in and out of Chicago.
Yep.
The chemistry that I see with the Bulls as a young squad reminds me of the chemistry that the Lakers have as a veteran squad looking to win a championship. It's all about camaraderie. And when you have, from what it seems or from what's being reported, that the Sixers locker room is not always on the same page, it makes you wonder what's going to happen moving forward. So to directly answer your question, I like the Bulls' camaraderie, but I also like the Orlando Magic's camaraderie. And I hope that they stay within that standings. If the playoffs were to start today, they'd be an 8th seed, and they'd make it to the playoffs. And, the Nets are a 7th seed. But I think the Bulls, to me, out of all the other teams you mentioned, I think has a chance. Kobe White told a buddy of mine who's a writer out in Chicago that he believes that Josh Hicks, that's what it is, of Regal Radio, he told him that I believe that the Bulls can make it to the playoffs this year. And, I'd like to see that. The Bulls are something that you want to cheer for because, they started out kind of rusty chemistry-wise. I've often said this, if not Zach LaVine, then who? Is it Lowry? Is it Thaddeus Young? Is it Kobe? I think once they find out that second hit or third hit on that team, second hit or third hit on that team, they're on to something. So, we'll see what happens.
Dare I say it, that right now the Eastern Conference is deeper in terms of right now, to me, 1 through 6, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those 6 teams make it to the finals. I think the Bucks are the odds-on favorite because they're the best team. But if they slip up, it wouldn't surprise me to see if Philly gets their act together in the playoffs. They could definitely make a run. They have that talent.
Or Toronto,
or Boston, or Miami, or Indy. They all have the bona fide superstars with the number 2 and then the number 3 scorer there. They all have their own version of a big 2, big 3. And, where you look at the West, it's the Lakers, Clippers. Denver kind of showed their colors last year that they're a regular season team. Haven't really gotten it together. We'll see. Utah, I don't think scares those top 2. The Rockets are very good, but we don't know what we're getting from them. And then Dallas is a year too early. OKC, I said, isn't a contender. Neither is Memphis. So I really think that the East is deeper this year in terms of contenders for the championship.
Yeah, it's deep. I think why you say it's deep is because it's a lot of guys digging for scraps, but the only top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference are the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Raptors. I think when it's all said and done, I think sometimes you look at standings, and I could be wrong, but so be it. It's not the first time I've been wrong. You look at the Western Conference, for example, and a former player explained to me best. Teams like the Mavericks and the Rockets look good at the beginning of the season, then they kind of falter down the wayside a little bit. You look at the Portland Trail Blazers, they look like they're somebody, and then, they may drop off a little bit. I think the thing in the Western Conference that surprises me, or it doesn't really surprise me because Chris Paul is a winner, but maybe surprises other people, is that the Thunder are playing as well as they are. Because you may put them in the same box as the Phoenix Suns or the Minnesota Timberwolves. But the issue is the Warriors are not. Their seeding is all the way at number 15. You look at the Spurs. The Spurs may be there. I don't think the Thunder will drop off, but the Grizzlies could. They're still a young team. But then you look at teams like the Rockets and the Mavericks. The Rockets either make you happy or disappoint you. Depends on which day the clock swings. Mavericks, everybody's high on Luka Doncic. I don't have a problem with him. But will they falter in the second half of the season? You know what the Nuggets are going to do. You know what the Lakers and the Clippers are going to do. Comparatively in the Eastern Conference, the Sixers are definitely not playing like a playoff team right now. They are 6-4 in their last 10. They've given up some games that they should have won. But the most consistent team in the Eastern Conference to me is the Bucks. The other thing is the Celtics are a silent assassin. I talked to Jaylen Brown back in December.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked him, did he think, among other things I asked, but one thing I asked him was, does he think that the Celtics are getting their just due? And he said he feels like they're still figuring a lot of things out. You add Kemba Walker this offseason. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are playing good basketball. Tatum's an all-star. Jaylen should have been an all-star. But I just think that in the Eastern Conference, there's so much youth, and I think that the strongest team in the East currently are the Bucks. But the Raptors are still there. I feel like you look at the top three teams, it's the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, yes, but the Sixers should be playing much better. But I also think the Sixers are suffering from the fact that they weren't able to re-sign J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, and Tobias Harris, and they had to pick Tobias Harris. And they overpaid Al Horford.
Yeah, and Tobias has been playing well, but Tobias is very streaky, so it's tough to see him maintain it. Now, when you mentioned OKC, one thing I have to say about OKC is they're still a very young franchise, but I believe the culture that was built there between Harden, Serge Ibaka, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and then coming into the league and just being a top team for over a decade. I think that culture that's built there within the franchise doesn't allow them. The fans expect them to win games. The fans expect them to be in the playoffs. So I just feel like it's one of those things where, bad teams and bad cultures kind of stick to their ways. Where the good franchises, the good teams, the good cultures always figure out ways to get there. Like, there's no doubt in my mind the Spurs are going to be an 8 seed. They're going to figure out a way to get there because that's just what the Spurs do. So it's just very interesting that you talked about that. And I think OKC could end up climbing up the rankings, as you said. Like, a Houston might have a lull. Dallas might get tired, and they might drop off. Speaking of that, we're going to talk about some of the contenders, pretenders there. Who do you see jumping up? I think the Spurs are going to jump up in the 8 seed. I think Memphis is going to drop off. Who do you see from that bottom of the West jumping up or falling out?
The Blazers.
Yep. Blazers are good. Dame Lillard is a beast.
Yeah. 9th seed, dealt with injuries, and is looking for a way to get it together. If you really think about it, Nurkic has been out since last season.
Since playing the Nets, yeah.
Yes, I was getting ready to say that. You beat me to the punch. You. But I if you look at the Blazers' lineup legitimately, a healthy Blazers team their starting lineup would be Lillard at the point guard position, McCollum at the 2, Melo at the 3, Nurkic at the 4, and Hassan Whiteside at the 5. That's a problem. I said this on another show in Philadelphia before I spoke to you this evening. That is a 2K player's dream.
Yup. Definitely. Definitely is. Yeah, that's definitely a team to watch for. Anyone else do you see? It's weird to look at Western Conference rankings and look at teams under 500 and even consider them in the playoffs. But that's where we're coming right now. The West is starting to even out a little bit. And it's very top heavy right now with the Lakers and the Clippers. But besides, Portland and San Antonio, the Pelicans are getting on sort of a run. Zion has definitely re-energized that whole entire franchise. Do you see them making a run in the second half and knocking on the door of an 8 seed?
I've said that since the beginning of the season. I thought that the Pelicans were a playoff team. It depends on what happens with the Rockets and the Mavericks. That 4-team trade, it seems like the Rockets aren't done dealing. And when PJ Tucker is your 6'5" center, it asks questions, but they also of an injured Nene. So for them, they cleared $2.2 million in their mid-level exception, which is great. But I think when you talk about the Spurs, I think what makes it difficult is I don't see the Thunder going anywhere. I don't see the Jazz, Clippers, or Nuggets going anywhere. If I had to pick a team that's in the higher echelon to slip down, it would likely be the Rockets and the Grizzlies, which leaves you with the Pelicans lining up. And the other thing is, I don't sleep on the Suns.
Really?
Yeah, I like the Suns, man. They're 20-30. They're 4-6 in their last 10. I think that Devin Booker should use being snubbed at the All-Star game as a reason to step up his game in the second half. And I think it's going to be interesting. I'll just say that.
Definitely going to be fun going down the road, as every single basketball season is going down the road. They're always a good time. Now, before we end out the show, I'm going to do to you what I always love doing to you. I love putting you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
Give me the finals and give me the champion and how many games.
I think it's going to be Bucks, Lakers in the finals, and I think the Lakers are going to win it.
How many games? 6, 7?
6.
6? So I'm going in. This might be my heart. Lakers Heat. I think the Heat get there. I think Jimmy Butler and LeBron rekindle that rivalry that they had when he was the young upstart on the Bulls trying to slow down a LeBron. But I do think the Lakers win that one in 5. So.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think that when you look at the Lakers team at large, the thing that I like about them is they, many people wrote them off when they lost to the Clippers on Christmas Day and then opening night. And when you look at those two games, Christmas came down to a defensive possession that messed them up. Patrick Beverley being the defensive stopper that he is. And then opening night was a whole different Lakers team.
Yep.
I mean, Danny Green had 28 points in that game. And LeBron and Anthony Davis were still figuring it out. And it's funny, I was with Anthony a couple of weeks ago. We have this developing running joke. I was with him in Chicago in November, and he said that LeBron told him they were talking about their pick and roll chemistry. And AD told me that, LeBron was taping Space Jam this summer, so they didn't really have a lot of time to really connect like that and work out together. And he said LeBron told him that they're not quite a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They're more like peanut butter and banana. So he told me that in November. So I was in the Lakers locker room, and I said to AD, I said, hey, are you guys peanut butter and jelly or y'all peanut butter and banana? He said, man, we still peanut butter and banana. We still figuring it out. And I think the cool thing about their chemistry is developing throughout the course of the season, and it's fun to watch. Everybody wants the fast product. I like, don't sweat the butterfly and this the cocoon. I'm liking their chemistry elevation every game, and it's a daily process. I think the Clippers are that good, though, and that's the thing that's scary. Right now, the Clippers are better because they've beaten teams that they should beat, and the Lakers at times don't beat teams they're supposed to beat. But I also think that the Clippers are still figuring out the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard experiment. But I also think that the Clippers have an advantage because they are a team that has been successful since last season when they went toe-to-toe with the Golden State Warriors. They're literally just adding, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on paper. The Clippers definitely traded a good piece in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but when you get the chance to get Paul George and you add Kawhi to that team, man, that's a powerful team. The Lakers are still figuring some things out. DeMarcus Cousins, will he return? Will the Lakers waive or cut somebody and bring in another free agent? Will they trade Kyle Kuzma? Those are the things that we're figuring out at Thursday's trading deadline. And it's a fun time to watch basketball. The fact that we're discussing, will it be Lakers, will it be Clippers, will it be Jazz, will it be whomever? But I'm pulling for the Lakers because I've had investigative journalism stock in them, and the Lakers win one for Kobe Bryant in the memory of Kobe Bryant.
Definitely. The veteran savvy of both the Lakers and the Clippers is just going to be fun to watch. There's a lot of championship caliber players and players that have been there before on both teams. So when they duel in the playoffs, if they do duel, it's going to be great. Now, the only thing we got to do, Scoop, is we got to get Brooklyn and New York up to speed with both LA teams so we can have each side of the East Coast, the two greatest cities in this country, going at it together with all four of those teams. That would just be a dream.
It would be dope, man. It would be very dope.
So, NBA, fix it.
There you go.
But all right, that's going to conclude this absolutely fun trade deadline heavy episode with my man Brandon, Scoop B Robinson. Scoop, where can the people find you?
Twitter at Scoop B, Instagram and Snapchat at Scoop_B. And then make sure you subscribe to the Scoop B Radio Podcast. 2.1 million streams in 2019. And, we're moving and grooving.
Still a senior writer over at heavy.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
All right, you can find his work there. And again, this is Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm the host, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at Sports Opinion 30, Instagram Sports Opinions 30. Find us on Facebook by searching for Sports Opinions Podcast. And wherever you're listening, give us a good rating, review, and you can find us anywhere and everywhere. And I'm also asking now, I want emails. Tell us if we suck. Tell us if we're great. Give me some topics to talk about on Cuesta Dose. Give me some guests you want me to get. I'll work my tail off to get them. You want to send that email? Go send it to sportsopinions30@gmail.com, and you won't be disappointed. I'll do what I can for all my fans. But once again, this was the Sports Opinions Podcast. Everybody, have a good one.